Yeah, so let's just settle in. Hopefully you have some blankets around and some pillows, or if you have bolsters, just to get ready. And I just wanted to start with a very short reading, and then we'll open. And this book is on the reading list on the website. If you're ever interested in just an overview of Yin Yoga, a very practical guide, this would be the book, The Complete Guide to Yin Yoga. Bernie, one of my very early Yin teachers years ago, but he's quite the teacher. But make sure it's this one. Some of his other ones are a bit more technical. So I'm just going to share a short reading, and I was inspired because we were all in our own little space, and so I thought this might be somewhat helpful. And he doesn't reference where this comes from. It's from one of those old yoga texts that are very sort of serious and dramatic, I would suppose. But this is a beginning of the chapter of how to practice Yin Yoga and what type of room to use. A small room of 4 cubits square, free from stones, fire, water, and disturbances of all kinds. And in a country where justice is properly administrated, where good people live and food can be obtained easily and plentifully. The room should have a small door, be free from holes, hollows, neither too high nor too low, well plastered with cow dung and free from dirt, filth, and insects. And I think we're lucky, at least here in the Hudson Valley, that we do have access to plenty of cow dung if we need to plaster up any holes. I'm not quite sure what a cubit is, but hopefully you all have lots of room. Good, so let's just take a moment and make sure we're in a good room. And just take a deep breath and just feel into whatever it is you are feeling when we open up a practice that we're exploring, not so much the specific discomforts and comforts of the body, but more our relationship to them. So it's good to just start noticing how we're feeling. And that can certainly be, the fabric of the physical body, but also just if there's any anxiety humming in the nervous system, any tension in the psyche. And let's just sit with that for a moment, how we might feel open and spacious and how we might feel a bit contracted and uncomfortable. Now the meditation of yoga. Let's just add, as we're sitting, one more element as we sort of feel into our energies and our qualities. And I think this is very important to really allow that this approach to our body and mind is really to create and to feel and to experience an intimacy with ourselves. So when we start to get into this inner world, when we start to feel the relationship between the tensions that appear physical and the tensions that appear emotional and psychological, this is a very intimate thing because it's unique to all of us, and it evokes just a stream, if you will, of memories and triggers that can be very mild, but could also be very deep. So, once we start to come into the poses, really make them your own, really move inwardly, and everything really that I'm sharing, it's just background. It's just allowing you to maybe open up a little bit more space or relax a little bit more. But to really use this time, this is a time out. This is a restorative time to really feel within oneself a sense of intimacy and what we're really and truly exploring, which hopefully I will point to during the practice. So let's begin by getting either the large bolster, and if you don't have the large bolster, I have already prepared a pillow and a towel. And just to show you that you can really use a combination of anything. Once you see the general, what we're supporting and what we're using to bring compression into the body, these things work, pretty much just as well. There's a convenience and a firmness sometimes to the bolsters that I prefer, but like I said, whatever really works. So what we're going to simply do to begin is we're going to take whatever bolstering you're going to use, the bolster or the pillow and the blankets, and just put it crossways in back of you from hip to hip. Put your feet on the floor and just elevate up onto the pelvis. Yeah, so not the lower back. So that means the buttocks by necessity have to be off the floor. If the buttocks are on the floor, you're right into the lumbar. But if the buttocks are up, then you're likely into the pelvis. Yep. So you might just want to adjust it a bit. Just feel very supported, so there's no pinching at least. There may be a little pulling in the lumbar. That's to be expected, obviously, because they're connected. And then we'll let the head come down. You can have a little softening back there. Try not to bring the head up to the point where the chin starts to tuck. This is contrary to the curve of the cervical spine. So let the chin be up a bit above the forehead. Open the legs out so they can just relax about a little wider than hip width distance. We're going to use the legs at some point. And then again, if you need to sort of readjust a bit, so we're out of that lumbar area and really just flat on that pelvic area, the sacrum, the pelvis. So if we find the pubic bone right under the pubic bone, if we find the hip bones right under the hip bones, and then we'll just begin by feeling into this area and relaxing. And then just to relax into the feeling sense of whatever sensations are being evoked. And again, not to be overly concerned or preoccupied with whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable. Yes, because there's going to always be gradations of this in our body, but to allow yourself to really just be with, sit with what the experience is with just a simple acceptance, so we can start to understand what it means to cultivate a different relationship with our discomfort. And this is part of the intimacy that I'm talking about. because discomfort, it's not isolated from your psychological or your emotional state, obviously. Or maybe it's not obvious, but this is what we're exploring, that how do we react to, how do we withdraw from, how do we try to manipulate the whole variety of comforts and discomforts within our body and our heart and our mind. So this is first and foremost, is to use the position to, whatever you're feeling, give it some space. Begin to listen to it. Let your breath become gentle and soft. And don't be in a rush to think you know what's happening. The way that the body communicates through the spectrum of comfort and discomfort is not linguistic. It's very non-linear, and we want to just start to listen to it on its own terms. And be aware that when you're invited to breathe into an area, uh, you hear this, quite a bit in yoga, to breathe into it. We're not literally breathing oxygen into this area of the pelvis. That would be the job of the circulatory system, yes? The respiratory system, yes? To bring actual oxygen to the cells and to the various fibers of muscle and ligament. In this practice, the invitation to breathe into an area, to breathe into your sacral pelvic area, is to feel the subtlety of micro movement. And not to change anything or to force anything, but you can notice that when you do breathe into this area, it's evoking something based on micro movement, quality of the inhalation and the quality of the exhalation. So that's an ongoing invitation, and this is a way to approach and explore the various discomfort. So the posture itself in relation to the breath is sort of the gross level, the textural level of exploration. The breath then becomes the more and more subtle aspect of exploration. So I'd like to move in a little bit to the hip area, and particularly the psoas. But if you feel like this is plenty for you and you're in an interesting place, feel free to just stay where you're at without having to move the legs. If you'd like to switch it up a little bit, leave the left leg out right where it is, and just bring the right leg, just draw that right foot up and place it either underneath that left knee or underneath the left upper thigh on the floor. So you'll see it's just sort of weighting that knee to the right, and this will draw you into some interesting areas. And if this feels a little bit too much intensity, obviously you can put something, a pillow, another bolster, a blanket under that right knee to give it a little bit of support. So, to whatever degree you can, I don't want to say tolerate. We're not really trying to tolerate it. We want it to be just right for your ability to listen and relax, but at the same time feel that we're moving into an edge of discomfort, of moving into the body, being able to communicate with you in an intelligent way. And if we are able to maintain this equilibrium between, uh, feeling and receiving, and being able to stay present with the pain, this is really part of what I was saying earlier about the intimacy, because the layers of physical pain, physical sensation, are never being held in the body in isolation. So there's always threads of triggers, and there's always threads of biological memory to something that got set in, imprinted in the body, psychologically, emotionally, and often, when we were very young. So the intimacy comes from just feeling this sort of pulsation of, yes, physical, this is painful, this is uncomfortable. Also, if we're allowing the heart to relax a bit, there's usually an emotional tone, a texture. It also can often evoke mental memories as well as biological memories. So this is your, internal landscape. And if we don't, uh, move away from, if we don't retract from the discomfort, we get to explore at this level. And this is, quite intimate, because you're working with this system that's ultimately, that is you. Good. So if you do have that right leg up and the foot under the knee or the thigh, let's straighten that out. So we'll let that right leg then be extended out. And if you would like, bring that left one up. So same thing, we'll just slide the foot along the floor, place that left foot under that right knee or under the upper thigh. Just find a place. You'll feel it's going to pull in a place that it's going to intensify in the hip and the psoas. But if you're not sure where the psoas or what the psoas is, doesn't matter. It's just that complexity of feeling from the lumbar over the hip. It's just a really big muscle. And another way to look at, this relationship to your body as an intimacy is that really your yoga is ultimately what you're open to. So it's an opportunity to not force and not superimpose anything on your experience, but just see what it is, that's changing all the time, that you are, needing to or wanting to explore and lean into. And then this becomes your yoga. So our attempt is to explore at the level where we're not having to keep anything separate. Any kinds of thoughts or emotions or sensations, we draw ourselves closer to them. There's a merging. There's not a separating. There's not a blaming. There's not a way that we hold it apart from ourselves, but that we go deeper into it. And this is the yoga. So the yoga then is what we are open to. And very often, the pain itself will be the gatekeeper. So this is very interesting. The pain itself is the teacher, is the intelligence, but it is also the gatekeeper. So if it is too much, if we're forcing, if we're have an agenda, then we lose the yoga. We lose the capacity to merge. We lose the capacity to listen to its intelligence, because we go into protection mode, if you will. So this is what I was saying earlier, we want to develop and cultivate a relationship with our discomfort, so we can really listen to it. We really allow it to then be the gatekeeper into layers. The layers of asana are also layers of mind, are also layers of heart, and layers of our relationship to everything that's in our experience. So let's straighten that bent leg out from here and allow both knees to bend, and put your feet flat on the floor, and just let the knees go back and forth a bit. And just feel any movement, any mobility in the pelvis and the sacral area up into the spine. And then at some point, when the knees both go to one side, if you want to just roll off of this, you can. One of the things that I often enjoy is to just then bring the knees up to the chest. And especially since you have some support, then you can kind of sway or do some circles, or even just keep bringing the knees back. It might be a little premature at this point for you to go all the way up and back into a forward bend, but even the knees coming to the chest is a forward bend. So just kind of play with the movement here. Work out the tension that might have accumulated, and then you can remove the bolster, and when you're ready, we'll lie down flat and just let this all reverberate. And then this then is the framework. This is what I think when we're coming in and out of the asana, when we're using the body in a sense of ritual and this sacred container, if you will. This is really the framework. This is the packaging of yoga. The real yoga is to explore what the obstacles may be to a genuine sense of knowing ourself, a genuine sense of inner peace, so that we come to a place where, at the end of the day, as we're going to bed, we feel a genuine sense of contentment. When we wake up in the morning, we feel a genuine sense of gratitude. And then everything in between is just for us to be curious and open to learning, without fear, without the need to control, without any sense of lack. So this is the deeper sense of well-being. And so the framework of the yoga, the framework of the asana, is to get comfortable with the physical body. So the physical body doesn't become a distraction. So our health and the sense of well-being at the level of just taking care of ourselves doesn't become a distraction. And then that's the packaging, that's the framework of the yoga. But that's not the gift, that's just the packaging. So we want to get to the gift, which is this inner sense of contentment, this inner peace, and ultimately this knowing of oneself. So this peace is not perturbable. And this is really the yoga beyond the framework of what we're doing. So, so we want to use these poses, in a very multi-layered way, and certainly over time. And this is the beauty of the consistency, because over time, then the body does start to trust and start to loosen and start to open, and then the meditation becomes more focused on what these obstacles might be, to this deeper sense of well-being, to this knowing of oneself. It's a very beautiful process, really. But we want to be able to not simply hold the yoga as just this physical kind of exercise where we just want the joints and hips to be open. Nothing wrong with that, but the potential is so much greater for us to really come into a sense of ourselves. Yeah, okay, good. So come on up. And we're going to just come forward a bit. So let's take, you might want to have a little towel or something, or a blanket and I'll just tell you what this one's for. So let's just put the left leg extended out. Yep, so just out in front of you. And we'll take the right leg and put it up and over. And I have my blanket near my left hip. Yeah. So the blanket will serve two purposes. So we'll take that right leg and bring it up and over the left leg back towards this left hip. And I'm going to set the arch of my foot on the blanket. Yeah. So it's this half shoelace pose here. So the right leg is up and over. It's back towards this left hip. So two things. One is to just soften the arch or the ankle so it's not pressing directly on the floor or your mat. But the second thing is it's giving this foot a little bit of height to open up this right hip a bit. So if I didn't have this and I pull this back, we just internally and tighten this right hip more. So this is just kind of nice. It just sort of can balance the hips out a little bit more. So once you have the framework, soften the lower back, drop the head down, relax the shoulders, and just start to ease into the forward bend. Then you can put your hands on the floor and really slow it down, really feel what's going on. So now we're kind of drawing the sensations from that sacral pelvic area, obviously up into this lumbar area that, it just is what it is. I wouldn't know where to begin to talk about the layers of tension that get woven into the lower lumbar with, all the activities that we do, and the driving and the sitting and it's just crazy. So just let's relax into it. We're just pretty much coming forward right now. So just let your body relax forward. So basically the head is hovering over this left leg.
And when I do use this language, which is just so limited, we're always just trying to use the language to point to sort of areas and things that really honestly can't be put into language, but we do our best. So when I talk about pain or discomfort or tension, sometimes it's nice just to translate that into a contraction. Yes, whether that's mental anxiety or emotional distress or physical tension. It's just something contracting. It's your energy contracting. And to know that on the balance of that is that it can also expand. So we sort of use these poses to work into a sense of equilibrium. The posture itself giving us the opportunity to contract into contracted areas, and then the release and the rest to allow those areas to then go back to a place of expansion. And this is in yoga primarily where we're working on a sense of equilibrium and balance. And then from that equilibrium balance, that's when we get to explore this deeper sense of well-being that I mentioned. And if you feel like you've relaxed enough in coming forward and you'd like to just twist a little bit to the left, so the left leg's extended, and we're then moving over towards that right foot a bit, but not necessary and no specific place to be. You just sort of let the body weave over there a little bit and notice how this feels. It kind of shears the hamstring a bit and may evoke something in the lower back. Good. So if you're over to the left, let's just bring the body back to a relatively straight spine. So the head would be somewhere dangling over the left leg once again. And then let's come on up from here. And you can take that right leg up and over and just release it, straighten it out. And then just bring the soles of the feet together in front of you and continue your forward bending. And again, always if the hips feel tender or you're dealing with some sort of, any kind of injury, you can always pull something under the knee or knees or thighs to support it. So again, areas that have a extra sensitivity, injuries you're dealing with, always take care of that. We want to assume that the body is healthy to do these poses as they're suggested. But if there is something that is giving you sensitivity or extra awareness, you use as much support as you need. So we're not trying to exacerbate the injury in any way, but a little movement, a little pressure, always an interesting way to explore even an injury, but certainly we don't want to make it any worse. So do let the head drop down, let the lower back soften if you can and round.
if you do find that your mind stays in an anxious or distracted kind of place, please don't judge that, but just start to see that that's just another form of contraction. And very often when the physical body can't release and expand the tension, it turns into this, repetitive, distractive, anxious kind of thinking. So observe that as you would observe a little tightness in the lower back. How are you able to relax and calm the mind just as you gradually relax and calm the body? These are in no way separate. And we're just trying to cultivate as much non-judgmental awareness as possible to see what it is that is keeping us more contracted than expanded, and how we organically move into a sense of balance with this. This is what I mean by, the yoga is what you're open to. Just very slow and just very deep, deepening right down into the pulsation of your organs and the pulsation of your cells, just to really relax into this inner landscape. So let's roll up from here. And you don't even need to roll all the way up. Sometimes it's nice to just roll all the way up and press the lower back forward, but sometimes it's nice to hold the forward bend a bit, because we're simply going to stretch the legs out to about hip width distance. And if you find that there's a little bit of belly in the way, then just open the legs a little bit more so you have room for the belly area. So when I say hip width, it's just sort of just to relax the hips and make some space. But again, we want the spine rounded. Yeah, so we're not, if I was going to allow myself to go to the floor, my forehead would be pretty much between my calves, not out towards my heels. So it's a very relaxing lower back, obviously, until it starts to tug. And then this is where we really slow down and just ease into it.
another way that this intimacy gets to express ourselves, and what we really get to sink into, is as we relax, we really get to feel this sense of aliveness, this life force. So many ways we can define ourselves, but ultimately it is this primal, conscious, intelligent life force that is expressing itself through your cells and through your organs and through your psyche and through your emotions and through your body. So all of these ways, we define ourselves, that change, that changes day to day and year to year and decade to decade. It's interesting how we have that capacity, the sort of semantic, mental capacity to change how we define ourselves. But the constant is the life force pulsing through all of this, a conscious, aware, intelligent life force. And this is intimate. This is as close as you can get to you. The other things are going to change. So to feel this directly, to feel that you are this primal vibration and pulsation, this scintillating, powerful aliveness, this inner light, this is intimacy with oneself. Good. So let's come on up from here. And enough forward bending for a while. Let's go back. So we're not going to rest yet. We're going to backward bend now, finish the forward bend, and then we'll take a rest. But if any time you need a rest, please do take one. So what I'm going to offer here is the full saddle pose. And I know the bending of the knees is not for everyone. So what I'm going to show is just some modifications first. You may or may want to check it out. And then I'll go into the full pose, and we'll do the supported pose as well. So if you are sensitive with the knees, these knees are very tricky, but they're so central to the health of the hips and the lower back. So to avoid them completely, that's your choice. But what you can often do is you can just bend the knees, either with some support. For me, sometimes if my knees are feeling tighter in the early days, I used to do this separate. I would just come into bending the knees to whatever my capacity was, either sitting between the heels or sitting up on a combination of bolsters, so we can approach the knees to where it feels safe, so we get some of this compression and release. So you could do this for a while, a few minutes to wherever it felt fine, and then remove the bolstering, straighten out the legs, and just put the bolster or your pillows crossway so the back arches. You get a deeper backward bend. Yeah, so if you're going to use pillows here, blankets, make it so the upper body is not supported. You could do something for the head, but you want a nice deep backward bend here. So that's one way to do it. Bend the knees first, kind of play with them in and out, compress, release, and then release them and do the backward bend separate. Yeah. So that's one way. Another way is to bend the knees back and support the backward bend. So again, you could use a bunch of pillows and blankets. We would want to support now the whole upper body. Yeah, so we're not going to put this time we won't put the bolstering crossways. So we want the upper body supported as well. And you could, even if you have a bolster, bring it up or bring your pillows up as high as you need to. And then whatever you're using, make sure it's tucked in, really supportive. So now I'm getting, yes, the knees bend and the backward bend. Very nice. Yeah. Make sure that you do it so you feel safe, obviously.
Yeah. Or if you're able to and willing and you want to explore, who knows, you may have, you may have really flexible, good, safe knees. I've heard of it on occasion. Sit between the heels, come first to your forearms, make sure it's all good, and however long this takes, and don't let your ego make the decision, let your body make the decision. And then if you want to go all the way back, this is nice and deep. Yeah, if the knees come up a little bit, let them come up. They'll always relax back down. Lovely for the quadriceps as well as the knees and the lumbar. Good. So the choices are to stretch the knees a little bit with some bolstering or not, and then release them out, put something across the back, come over into a backward bend, or bend the knees, have some support. So you're doing a supported backward bend saddle pose, or use nothing and go all the way back. So set up any one of those many combinations and we'll see what happens. And whatever you're feeling, any level of density in the body, let the breath slow down, and also give yourself the gift of being patient. The way that your body tightens and dehydrates has been happening, day by day. So to undo this, to start to bring a greater sense of fluidity and openness, it really, really takes time. This fascial, skeletal, muscular systems cannot be forced. They will not be forced. If forcing them will lead to injury. So we want to just be very patient and listen to that relationship that the discomfort is trying to share with you. It's there as an intelligence, and it's there to guide you. And also don't feel like you are committed to a depth or a shape. If you've explored and you feel like you need to shift something, or it doesn't feel deep enough, or it feels too deep, change it. The basic areas that we're exploring right now are the knees and the quadriceps and the lumbar curve. So you've got pillows and blankets and bolsters, and the basic suggestion that you have a template, fit your body into that template and let the sensations guide you. It really is that simple. And at some level, and this will be different for everyone, but our yoga essentially is letting go of the need for perfection and self-improvement, and just cultivate this authentic quality of balance. And this is unique to you. This is the intimacy of honoring where you're at very different times. So allow the posture to be just a container. This is a sacred space of intimacy for you to explore whatever is arising.
slow, calm breathing is patience. The relaxing allows you to experience that you are indeed this spacious awareness. And so then whatever arises, just let it dissolve into this sense of self as spacious awareness. Let your feelings dissolve in you. Let your thoughts dissolve in you. Let your sensations dissolve in you. And allow your perceptions of the external world to dissolve in you. And this is the gift. This is the gift of discovering our essence, unchangeable and eternal. And like I said earlier, the yoga is just the packaging. And just as Buddhism is just the packaging, Christian mysticism, just packaging, Advaita Vedanta, packaging, Sufism, the packaging. And certainly this packaging can be like this beautiful, colored, glittery tissue paper, but don't stay with the packaging. Don't get absorbed in the packaging. We want to unfold. We want to take away the packaging, discard it, and get to the gift. The gift is you. The gift is you at your essence. This is your ground of being. And all of our concepts, all of our semantic labyrinths, all of our belief systems, it's just part of the packaging. And this is the in yoga and all of these other packaging, yes, this is the I am without adding anything to it. It's not far away. It's not complicated. It doesn't take training, education. We just feel this presence. We feel this awareness that, yes, I am conscious. And we don't have to add
anything to it. I'm not conscious of sensation. I let them dissolve back in. I'm not conscious of thoughts. I let them dissolve back in. And this, my friends, is the intimacy with oneself. This is the foundation of that deeper sense of well-being, that sense of well-being that is not contingent upon vitamins or self-help or any kind of modality, but just that you are. I am. So before we begin the process of releasing at whatever level you're in your backward bend, just slowly start to just increase your breathing. And so when I say breathe into what you're feeling, I'm not saying this literally, I'm saying to feel the micro movement, to cultivate sensitivity of the body is responding and moving with this breathing. It's coming in, contracting on your inhalation. It's relaxing somewhat on your exhalation. So whatever it is you're feeling, or even just to breathe into a general sense of spaciousness. So we have the choice. We can, if something feels contracted, feels dense, let the breath permeate that density. If you feel spacious, breathe and let that spaciousness expand beyond the illusory boundary of the container itself. At some level, part of this subtlety is seeing that there is no inner and outer. Inner and outer is just a convenience of language. When we allow ourselves this freedom of awareness and consciousness and beingness, even we could, in religious terms, we would call it divinity. There's no boundaries. We just are boundaryless. To allow the breath to soften any imagined boundaries and just feel yourself as this presence. Unwrap the package and experience the gift of your essence. Good. So depending at what level of contraction you're at here, be careful coming out. So I don't recommend, if you have the knees bent back and your back, I don't recommend coming forward. It's a little tricky for the muscles kind of pulling and tweaking. Always think it's better to kind of roll to one side and then release one knee out first. And once you've got one knee released, you're good to go to the other side. The other side will be a little easier. So just kind of release, yes. And then just find a place to relax. And let's take a bit of a rest here. That was a rather lengthy backward bend. And like I said, we're going to continue with our forward bending on the other side.
And, let me be very clear. There's absolutely, in my humble opinion, nothing wrong with the packaging. We often get great value from the packaging, the gift of the packaging. We just want to make sure that we're also in a process of layer by layer removing it. And then often the package can be, very scintillating and sparkly. And then when we take the first layer of this, beautiful, colorful tissue paper off the packaging, there's another layer. So whether, again, it's any of our spiritual, religious, anything that we're using, mantra, japa, bhakti yoga, hatha yoga, we want to make sure that we're in a process of taking away, discarding the packaging and sitting quietly and confidently in this essence of ourself, and to see what arises and what disperses. This is why the breath is such a lovely metaphor, because there's no opposites in the breath. The breath simply arises and it disperses. And then we can extend that, we can allow that to radiate out into our thoughts, into our emotions, into our sensations, into our perceptions of the world. How could we possibly be something that arises and disperses? Not possible, because it's no longer there. And after some time of this, then we just rest. We rest in the essence. We rest in our essence. And this is a great gift, because then we see that ultimately the meaning of life itself is just being alive, and we get to celebrate that aliveness in any way that we choose, any way that feels good and positive and celebratory. And then where we get more and more discerning, and this is what we might call a spiritual maturity of what packages we're willing to receive. Yes, because we know that there's a process of unwrapping them that can be quite well, I don't want to say arduous, but we can get wrapped up in the wrapping of our packages. I do know that. Okay, let's come on up and let's just go right into the other side of that forward bending that was so lovely. This will be a nice counter to the backward bending that we did. And I was suggesting to maybe have a blanket or a towel, this time on the right side, because we'll leave the right leg extended out. And then we're going to take that left leg and bring it up and over, kind of pull it towards that right hip. And what I'm suggesting is having just a little softness, yes, but also a little height to give this left hip a little bit of room. And then the forward bend is just gentle and forward. And especially since we're going to still feel energetically some of that backward bend. So just go nice and slow. We'll start out with approximately the head over that right leg, and then we can shift over to the right in a bit. And certainly this does not mean what I'm saying, that our life cannot have meaning. But when I say that the meaning of life is to simply be alive, so this is the primal, this is the ground of being, this is who we are, this aliveness. So yes, we want our life to have much meaning, but we also want to have the wisdom and the understanding that we are the ones generating that meaning. We are giving our life, our circumstances, our situations, our challenges, our gifts, we're the ones giving it that meaning.
And so this gives us a tremendous amount of freedom. This is what allows us then to put our head on the pillow at night and feel contentment, to wake up in the morning and feel gratitude. And then in between, we have this incredibly creative time, this space to give or withdraw meaning from things. And this allows our life to be playful, light, and creative. So if we get stuck in a meaning, that's just a contraction. That's consciousness just contracting into thinking that meaning is independent of our connection to life itself. So this is why the packaging of yoga is suggesting, let's just relax first. Let's go as deep as we can into this awareness. Let's really explore the texture and the qualities of what this conscious awareness is. And then we can explore from there. And this is liberation. This is in yoga, in Vedantic terms, what we call moksha, liberation, because then we're free from the circumstances. We're free from the situations, because we're starting to then see that life is just more vibrational than circumstantial. And we are the ones keeping our vibration high, expanding it, or holding it in contraction, keeping it lower. So I don't know if you went over to the right, but I got into a little bit of babbling there. So I never invited you to, but if you did, let's come over straight. If you didn't, don't worry about it. And then we'll come on up from here. And let's then from here, straighten this left leg out. So both legs are out. And then we'll bring the soles of the feet together and we'll continue our forward bend. Just a nice, soft, relaxed forward bend. Don't force it. And even with this language of contraction and expansion, be careful with that. So we don't want to think that this contraction is a solid or a stuck state necessarily, that whatever you're feeling, there's always a, sort of a pulsation between these two forces in the body, in the mind, in the heart. So when we're feeling contracted, when we feel discomfort, when we feel tension, restriction, whatever it happens to be, it's not stuck. It's not solid. It has some movement. So we want to feel that. And the same thing when we're expanded. We don't want to feel like, oh, this is it. I'm as expanded as I can be. We want to feel like, no, there's an element of groundedness. There's an element of contraction. So feeling the body as this sort of, sometimes it's a particle, sometimes it's a wave, sometimes it feels contracted, sometimes it feels spacious. But it's always, there's always a continuum there. And that's part of the subtlety, that's part of the sensitivity. And this takes a sensitivity and it takes a maturity. This is why we want these positions to be set up just right so you can relax and explore this. If you're just feeling like, ow, bad, not good, I wish this wasn't happening, tight, pain, ow, injury, then there's no room for subtlety. There's no room to move into this, this almost this energetic, not almost, this energetic place of feeling the forces between contraction and expansion as moving, because that's what pulsation is. That's what vibration is, always movement. Good. So let's come on up from here, please. And again, you don't have to come all the way up, but you could if you want to press that low back forward, or you could just stay forward a bit, straighten out the legs, relax the hips, make room for the belly, and then we'll just again soften and come forward. So last part of this lovely forward bend. this is why this this framework of yoga can be so powerful, very powerful package in a way, because one of the things we get to explore is, are we actually having an experience, a direct experience of our body, of this visceral, sensory, internal energy? Or are we at the level of ideas about the body? Are we habitually just thinking about the body, which is a mental energy? And this is why we take our time. We take our time because these are not clear demarcations. These are not clear boundaries. And oftentimes, oftentimes, intensity and discomfort and pain can evoke this. We want to think about it. We want to think about how to alleviate it, on and on. Whereas what we're trying to do is we're trying to hold this framework. The framework of yoga is to experience it directly and see what this experiencing is. What is it made of? What is the actual fabric and texture of discomfort? How are you experiencing it? And this is very tricky because we habitually want to, or it's actually often programmed into us to just go right up into the mental, intellectual, and come up with a theory, come up with a thought, come up with a solution. So to really be able to make that distinction, and that just takes space, giving yourself time and space without judging, to see, oh, here I'm thinking about the body, here I'm actually feeling the body. Good, so let's come on up, please, from here, roll up. Legs should already be out, and let's just lie down and let's take a break. So now we will have a nice rest after all of that forward and back and forward. So just make yourself comfortable and we'll take a rest here. And any time that you like, you can put a little bit more attention on the exhalation. So, the overall container is the qualities of yin, this being the approach to this body and yoga. So the inhalation is, tends to become habit. The inhalation is reflecting, most of our anxiety, and the exhalation gets very little attention typically. So in this practice that is cultivating relaxation and cultivating spaciousness, anytime you'd like, you can start to explore just the myriad of qualities that the exhalation has and how it really informs your inhale if it's allowed to release and it's allowed to come to completion. So there's a whole range of anatomical benefits to extending and feeling and experiencing the exhalation, but also just to feel the lower belly relax, to feel the way that the exhalation then prepares for an inhalation. So you come to a balance between the two. And at some point when we're breathing, so the length of the exhalation is equal to the length of the inhalation, this in itself creates an equilibrium in the body. So this is always an invitation in our yin practice to bring a little bit more attention, to examine a little more closely our relationship to our exhalation. Okay, so let's come on up. Unless you need a little bit more rest and you're in a good place, you can stay where you are. But two things I want to have for this. I want to have a roll. So I've just rolled up a towel here. So we can put it in the back of the neck and we can get the back of the head slightly off the floor. So we really can support the cervical spine. And I want to have something, I'm going to use the small bolster, but something with a little heft to it. So if you don't have a small bolster, maybe you have a heavy blanket that you could use. It's just for a weight. We're just going to weight into the twist. So what I would like you to do is have your weight nearby. It doesn't have to be a lot. It's going to serve two purposes. But the first thing to do is to put the roll under the back of the neck, not the back of the head, and just take your hand back there so the back of the head is not touching the floor. This will ensure that the chin's coming above the forehead and the cervical spine. It's compressed a bit, but it's also supported. And then we'll bring the knees up to the chest, trying to keep the right shoulder on the floor and let both knees go over to the left with the right shoulder staying on the floor as much as possible. And then take that weight and put it over this right leg. Just to two things here. One, it keeps these legs from opening out. If there's no weight, usually the legs will just start to open to where they're most comfortable. So this keeps us in a little bit tighter position. And also the weight itself will provide some draw, some deeper tugging into the twist. Then take your head, if you're open to this, and look to the right. You can let that right arm drape out, look towards that right hand. So we're getting a little bit of twist in the neck. Both knees up and over to the left with some weight on top of that right leg to weight everything down. And this is just a supported twist. And when I suggest to, explore the exhalation, really it's just as simple as feeling it. So when you take an inhale, really feel it. Just feel the presence of the breath, the subtle shifts of the lungs and the body. And the same thing with the exhalation. Let the lungs empty and feel it. What does this actually feel like to exhale? What does it feel like anatomically? What does it feel like psycho-emotionally? What does it feel like at the level of um, just the movement of the body, the internal movement, the expansion and the contraction at the level of the breathing, but just at the level of feeling it. And this is, to my mind, this is an unlimited exploration. And one of the reasons this can be so powerful is because we know that the breath is intertwined with the vehicle of the prana, the prana, the life force, the the actual vibratory nature of your being. So to just let the breath turn into a habit and let the breath just stay at the top of the lungs and hold tension and anxiety is not giving the full body this sense of aliveness. So if you do have your head over to the right, just let it kind of go back and forth a little bit, just a little bit of movement left and right, and just kind of feel into any resistance. Come up to the resistance gently, respect it, explore it, and just to kind of get acquainted with the sensations of the neck and the shoulders and the upper spine, the weight of your head. And then you can bring your head back to a straight spine, and you can just keep the towel under that. If you do have the weight on the legs, you can remove the weight, and we'll just bring the legs up. It's sometimes nice, you can either go right over to the right side with the legs, this time keeping the left shoulder on the floor, but sometimes it's nice just to extend the legs out for a bit. Yeah, maybe just wiggle the toes or have the legs go up and down into the hips. So whatever you need to do here, and then we'll, same thing, we'll bring both knees up to the chest, let them go over to the right this time, again, trying to keep the left shoulder on the floor, and then just put something over that left leg if you're open to that. Just to, again, the two things is to keep the knees higher and to allow that weight to have a little extra tugging in the lower back. So once again, you can allow your head to just go side to side, just carefully and slowly. Most important to go slowly, yes, for your safety, but also, how often do you explore this region of the neck and the shoulders in this kind of detail? So again, never to bypass anything or to manipulate, but to really feel it. And if you feel something that feels dense, let the breath and just let a sense of spaciousness saturate it. Is thinking that this slow movement, this attention, this relaxation, this consciousness can start to dissolve any residue of resistance or tightness that the body is holding. And that's really all these densities are. They're just residues of energies that got embedded within the system. They're not solid, they're not static, they're not permanent. They're just residues of energies that got contracted, a feeling of density, and we're just slowly, and slowly is important so the body doesn't contract and hold them and create more. This relaxation and this breath and this easing into it is just starting to dissolve these residues of tension. And yes, it is possible. This is the foundation of this approach to Hatha Yoga. Good. So you can bring your neck back to a straight spine. You can bring your legs, remove that weight if you have it, bring your legs back up, straighten them out, make yourself comfortable, and let us take another rest. Good. So let's come on up, and I want to circle back to where we opened. And where we opened was we used the large bolster and put the pelvis on it and extended the legs out, and then brought one at a time up to open the hips and the psoas. So the second time around, I'm going to just show it with a pillow and a blanket. But if you want to elevate, if you're using the bolster and you have both, you could put the small bolster on top of the big one, and this will turn it into a deeper backward bend, really opening up that pelvis, but it's not necessary. I'm just giving that as an option. And you could build your pillow, blanket, towel a little higher as well. But either way, just notice how it feels. Sometimes coming back and doing something a second time, typically it's different. So you want to have your bolstering appropriate to that. But either way, either with a pillow and a blanket, towel, or a bolster and a bolster or bolster, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to bring the pelvis up onto the
the whole contraption. Yep. And then keep the feet on the floor until the upper body's down. And then we'll let the legs extend out. So we'll just stay here. So you'll know you're either in the right depth or not, more or less. It's up to you. But again, not the lower back so much. So if you need to adjust that, we definitely want the buttocks off the floor. Again, underneath the pubic bone, underneath the hip bones. And there we are. And so again, what we're using as a reference point, what we're using as a reference point to come into our sense of self is just simply open conscious awareness. And this is not esoteric and it's not difficult. You just simply ask yourself, am I aware? Am I conscious? And of course you are. Yes, you're aware of my voice. You're conscious of my voice. So we just set this as our ground of being. This is our presence. This is, let's call this you. And then from here, we just allow, and it's not a trying, it's not a forcing, but we just allow any feelings that arise to dissolve into this you, into this spaciousness. Any thoughts that arrive, we don't fight them, try to change them, judge them. We let them dissolve. Any sensations of the body, allow them to dissolve into this expanded sense of self. And any of your perceptions, including my voice, just let them dissolve into this open field of spacious awareness. It's not complicated, it's not esoteric, it's not even special, it's not ordinary. You're a conscious being. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the story of yourself unless it's one that's causing you pain and fear. But I'm just talking generally. There's nothing wrong with the story of yourself unless you believe it. So the yoga, the exploration, the freedom is to free yourself of the story of yourself. Then you're free to enjoy it. You're free to change it. You're free to be light with it. So we want to know that it's a story. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about we're giving everything meaning.
So freeing ourselves from the story of ourself, knowing it's a story, this is the freedom. Then where we direct this conscious awareness is up to us. Again, this is when our life, this aliveness, this primacy of this vibrational essence becomes playful and creative. So let's do I think we started with the left leg out and brought the right leg up. It doesn't matter. Let's keep the right leg out and bring the left leg up. And again, we're bringing it either under the knee or under the thigh. So right leg stays extended, left leg comes up, and you just tuck it under. You just kind of find the place. It doesn't even have to be under. If it wants to be out, just really let the hip, the feeling over the top of the hip, the lower back, is nice to also pull. This is a sort of a version of a twist as well. And also feel free to make little minute adjustments if you need to move it in or out or replace the pelvis. So again, the framework is just for you to explore. Letting the breath be calm, letting the slowness, the relaxation of the breath, letting it merge with the quality of patience. Good. So let's take that leg that we have bent and straighten it out, and we'll bring the other leg up and in. So just switch legs, whichever ones you have.
I think one of the things that we can, genuinely and very personally explore when we start to have the perspective that these spiritual and religious practices are just the packaging. They're not really the gift. Um, and these packages can be quite beautiful. There's nothing wrong with the beauty of the journey, but quite often the packages that have a lot of the sparkles and the glitters, and they're also often promises embedded within these packages that promise great mystical states or enlightenments or samadhis or something extraordinary. And this quality, if you will call it a quality, but this ground of being, of just simply being conscious, the awareness of being alive, the I am aware, is quite ordinary. But ordinary in the sense that when we look at the blueness of the sky, that's it. We're not separate from that. When we feel the wind on our face, that's it. It's ordinary, but it's extraordinary. When we drink a glass of clean water, we really taste it. We really feel the fluid permeating our cells. So to really examine, is it something that we think is esoteric and far off and only for very special people and the gurus and the teachers, or is this closer than close, closer than our breathing, that we just wake up to the aliveness that we are, that is not separate from any aspect of ourself or the world? And this can be sometimes this can be a disappointment because we work so hard and we've tried so hard to find this enlightenment or this special state. But the gift that we give ourselves when we just wake up, that we are the thing. We are the thing we've been looking for, because we are always aware. And it's not the thing we're aware of, because that's, again, arising, grabbing our attention, and dissolving. So to sit with a great appreciation of that, it's very, very ordinary, but at the same time, it's very profound. Ordinary, but profound. And we don't have to go looking for it. We don't have to, we can just discard the packaging and be with the presence of ourselves. Good. So if you still have that leg bent, let's stretch that out. And now, since we've done this the second time and we've been through, now I would invite you to, this is a lovely thing to do, but just do it to your capacity. And it's also good because we already have the hips a little higher than the chest, which is so therapeutic now to get the blood into the brain and the heart. But if you want to just bring the knees up, even if you just hold the bolster, bring the knees up and the legs up and over a bit towards the head, we're going to start compressing into the glands and the organs of the endocrine system. If you're able to and would like to go deeper and just come into the full forward bend and then bring the knees on either side of the head, or whatever you're able to do, this is just amazingly therapeutic to do. So just have this forward bend this way, kind of play with it to whatever your capacity is. Just the more you can compress this frontal space of the body in this way, it's just so lovely. So we'll just come in and out of this a little bit, just kind of play with it, kind of work the pelvis a little bit, let it sway. And then you can come down and relax and come into your own private Shavasana as you will. Or if you'd like to come and sit up with me for a few moments and we'll close our yoga, that would be your choice.
But either way, if you're lying down and relaxing or sitting up, let's just close with the simple presence of silence, a deep, authentic internal quietude. All things arise, suffer change, and pass away. This is their nature. When you know this, you become still. It is easy. Namaste.